¿Alguien va a necesitar intérprete de español?
Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate you coming out on a lovely, crisp evening here in beautiful Marina. My name is Ryder Smith. This is Jeff Tilton over here to my right. And we are going to take you through our workshop this evening. So I appreciate you being here. A couple things I want to note. Hang on, let me go back a couple quick seconds here. Sorry. So in addition to the fact that we have Spanish language translation available tonight, as our Spanish speaker said, we also are going to be recording the Spanish audio this evening. And we are recording this whole event with our camera back there and with this microphone. And I say that, number one, just so you know that some of the things you say tonight not some, but all the things you say tonight we hope are going to be recorded. And number two, when you do have some comments and we get to the Q&A phase and whatnot, I ask for your patience while I come to you with a microphone to get you to speak into this microphone so we can properly capture your audio, and then wait for me while I get to Jeff or myself to actually hold it to their mouth so that they can actually reply back. So bear with us tonight while we make that work out. I hope you also grab some snacks tonight too. We brought napkins and fresh oranges because we care about your health, but we also brought cookies for those of you who don't care. So, all right. So, meeting's being recorded, and we've introduced ourselves. My apologies. Very good. Jeff's on it. So, so we have some goals for today. Number one is that you learn from the experts, and fundamentally, the process of drawing lines and redistricting, normally done every 10 years. For you all, we're doing this soon after we've drawn new lines because we only moved to districts recently. But normally this process happens every 10 years. And it is esoteric. It is a process that involves math and a lot of considerations and issues and legal nuances. And so it is complex. Therefore, the goal is to make sure that you all are empowered to learn from experts. And the good news is that the city invested in National Demographics Corporation to come be your demographer here in the city. National Demographics is the largest demographer in the state of California, has done probably 90% of the district formations in the state of California, and is working on the vast majority of redistricting projects right now as well. So it's great to have Jeff here. Jeff and I have done probably 20 of these workshops together in the last 4 or 5 months. Got to know Jeff really well. And he's really good working through these issues. Number two, so after you get a chance to hear from us as experts, we want to listen to you because ultimately you are experts in your community and in your neighborhoods. So it's important that we take that chance to then listen to you. It's also why I want to make sure we capture the audio on this what looks like a rabbit's foot, and get it captured properly so we make sure your voice is captured tonight. And we also are going to put some things up on the screen later when we get to a discussion on communities of interest where we're going to want to record that as well. Jeff is going to go over some mapping tools. And mapping tools are kind of a unique element of this complex process of redistricting because unlike so many public policy challenges, we actually come to you, the public, and empower you with the chance to involve yourself in crafting the solution to districts in Marina. And I say that because on a lot of cases like the budgeting or other processes, there's ways to give feedback, but you don't usually get your hands directly on the solution. Our dream is that somebody in this room tonight or somebody in the community is the one who crafts a map that is population balanced and meets the legal criteria and becomes a map that is adopted by the council. So we're hoping it's a community generated map. And then ultimately the goal tonight is that you leave here empowered. Empowered to not only go back and think more about these maps and the process that's ahead of us to get through the map drawing process, but that you also involve your friends and neighbors in the process for furthering the discussion. And then I would just say a general point. Now, I realize I'm preaching to an audience who's chose to be here tonight, so my thanks for you all taking the time, effort, and energy to be here. This is a great turnout for our Friday night event, in my experience. Fundamentally, democracy works better when people are involved. And how we represent ourselves in representative democracy is foundational and built into this idea of drawing districts. So when better to get engaged than in a moment like this? Number two, you're the experts on your communities and your neighborhood. So we can have all the expertise in the world, but we need to hear from the people who live in this community to make sure your communities of interest are represented, and we've heard about those as part of the map drawing process. And finally, this is a once-in-a-decade opportunity. Yes, we recently formed districts not that long ago, but foundationally, what's going to happen in the next couple months here to adopt maps are going to be the maps that we live with and vote around for the next 10 years until 2030, when the census is conducted, and 2031, when we redraw maps again in the city. So tonight, we're going to go over the process, rules, and goals. We're going to discuss neighborhoods and communities of interest. Jeff's going to give a demo of a couple mapping tools and talk to you about some paper tools that are available to you here, and maybe some of you had them already on the table. And then we'll talk about the next steps and where we go from here. So with that, Jeff, I'll invite you to come stand on this side so that you can, I'll be your advancer, so to speak, but the camera guy is going to want you over on this side, and I will sit here and push buttons to your
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. As Ryder had mentioned, it's great to see you. And then if you can't get enough of us tonight, we're going to be doing this again tomorrow in the same place, 10 a.m., sort of like we're in Vegas. A residency. We're having a residency in Marina. So there's a process involved in redistricting, a minimum process, and essentially that minimum process is for the jurisdiction to hold 4 public hearings. That's the minimum. But the city has decided to go beyond that. So it has already held what we call 2 draft map public hearings, and those are simply to educate the community and to engage and gather input on neighborhoods and communities of interest, which is a big part of the change in the law as it relates to redistricting in California with cities and counties. Very similar for school districts and special districts, but we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about the city of Marina. So we have lived through, we are still living through a thing called the pandemic, but it impacted not only our daily lives, but it also impacted the census, which resulted in a delay. Typically, we'd have the census figures March, April, that we can have all this time, and it's in essence a year to complete this. We have until April 17th to redistrict the city of Marina's council districts. So the census data were released, the federal census data were released August 12th. Now, some of you still might be having difficulty with respect to the hangover you might have because of the celebratory nature of the census release day. But for those that are census geeks, it was a day of celebration. I'm not one of those. So that really means nothing for California, though, because California takes the census data and then adjusts the data with its prisoner population. And what that means is, while we would have census data for the city of Marina on August 12th, we really can't use that data until California goes through the process and sees how many inmates that are in the California prison system that once resided in the city of Marina. Now, it may not be any, but it might be 1 or 2 that could really adjust the official numbers. So those data were released. The statewide database would like to tell you they released it on September 20th as promised, but they actually released it in the wee hours of September 21st. Why do I tell you that? Well, our firm found several abnormalities with the data that the statewide database folks released. They took our information and made those corrections and then re-released it on September 27th. So from September 27th until April 17th, we need to redistrict the city of Marina. Sounds like a very compressed time, and in essence it is. We're going to get it done. But count your blessings. You're not a county or a large city who has a December 15th deadline because they have primary elections coming up in June. So we do have time. We do have that beauty of time on our side compared to some of our neighboring jurisdictions. So here we are, November 19th and 20th. The city has decided to offer these workshops for the community in preparation for what we call a draft map hearing. And that will be on January 4th. And it's at that particular hearing, council will see, and the community will see the draft maps that have been presented for consideration for the redistricting. It's at that particular meeting that we're going to ask council to pare down those draft maps. They don't have to, but it would be great if they did, or it did rather, for the February 15th meeting. The reason why I say that is we have deadlines for folks to submit draft maps for consideration. We have a deadline of December 21st for the January 4th meeting. And we have that deadline so we can process it. National Demographics Corporation can process the maps and on the various data tables to present to council, so council can make a sound and wise decision on what maps they want to move forward. But that doesn't mean it stops there. We're still inviting the community to submit draft maps until February 1st for that February 15th meeting. That's why we're saying, council, please consider paring down what you have on that January 4th public hearing, because you might get a lot more for that February 15th hearing. They don't have to. It's just a strategy. And then we're looking to adopt on March 1st following the second reading of the ordinance. Thanks. Any questions on that particular? Thanks. All right. Any questions on this? Excuse me. Any questions on this particular piece of information? Thanks. Okay. So this is where the meat and potatoes are, if we are really interested in drafting maps or really understanding the process. As part of redistricting, we must follow the federal laws. It's the intention of getting the 4 districts in the city of Marina, because the mayor is at large, to be an equal population. Kind of difficult to do, so the courts have allowed a deviation of 10% or less. I always like to say under 10%. Don't make it double digits, just make it a single digit. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, where we want to make sure that we are not diluting the voting strength of the protected class. We do not want to have any discriminatory practices whatsoever. And we want to have no racial gerrymandering. So that's federal laws. Those are right off the top. Then with the new Fair Maps Act that was signed January 2020, we have criteria for California cities, and they must go in this particular order. So our districts must be geographically contiguous. And basically what that means is there's no breaks. And so, we don't have a single district that might be District 1, in the southeast corner, and then there's this little pocket somewhere else in the city. It's all going to be one district. To the extent practical, we want to keep neighborhoods and communities of interest together, and I'll talk about what those are. We'd like to have easily identifiable boundaries. Here in Marina, we have some major roads that are easily identified. Well, Highway 1, where folks know that's an easily identifiable. Reservation Road, Del Monte Boulevard. Those are easily identifiable. There might be others that are more easily identifiable for folks in a particular area of the city of Marina. And we want our districts to be compact. We don't want to have funny-looking tentacles reaching from one district into another. That just begs the question, what's going on there? Is it political gerrymandering? We want these districts to be compact. And we shall not favor or discriminate against a political party in this process. There's that column there on the right, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. There's nothing illegal with it. But just want to say that the column on the left, the federal laws, and the Fair Maps Act will be a challenge enough to make sure we meet all of those criteria going through this process. If you're able to do that, then you can consider the column on the right. But it's the column on the left and the middle column that are the most important pieces of this work. Any questions on this particular information? Okay.
So I just want to be sure that when we're talking about compact and mapping and contiguous, that these lines that are drawn are still done with census tracts or blocks. And so they have to use those. They're not like, you can't split tracts and blocks, correct?
So great question. I have to come back to me with this. So yes, we use census blocks to draw the boundaries. And you cannot split those census blocks while you're doing that. And so we're going to show you some of the tools that you're able to see that. Great question. Thank you. Oh.
Is the goal to end up with a similar population in every district?
So is the goal to have similar population in every district? Yeah, the goal is to have equal population. And I think I have a slide on here that shows you what that ideal population will be. Equal, thank you. Yes, it's equal today, and it's equal based on the 2020 census that's been California adjusted. Okay. I think we have a slide that shows what those numbers are. I'm really getting my steps in.
Thank you. I just want to kind of follow up on Paula's question about the census blocks. I'm hoping you can explain why our census blocks are kind of so strange, look so strange, and just kind of clarify that I think what she was asking is under the law, right? There's absolutely no room to divide census blocks. Is that?
Well, there is some room, and it's based on the geography, and in that case, we actually would count homes and do an estimate on some, but it's very rare. It's very rare.
So what I was just curious about is one of the prior questioners had asked about if the districts currently were balanced. And I thought you said they were balanced based on 2020 census, and that the last and first districting that we did in the city was actually based on the 2010. And that's one of the points of contention for many people right now, is that there are many people who are living here who were not counted in the first districting, even though they were here, because they were not in the 2010 census.
So if I misrepresented your question, my apologies. So map 109 that you have, I think it's 109C, the design of that map was based on the 2010 census, and under the law, those districts are balanced under the law because they were used under 2010 census numbers. Balanced in population based on the law. They were less than 10% deviation.
Based on the 2010 census, not the actual population that existed now.
Based on what we think the population is today in 2020.
Okay, I need to come back to you because we want to make sure we get this recorded.
Okay. So this is 2010 that we're looking at?
Okay, so she's looking at a map. It was the adopted map from the 2019 districting. It's called map 109C, and that map was adopted, I think, November of 2019, but that map was designed based on, by law, the 2010 census figures. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
As much as any of it does, yeah. So then for going forward, we're going to look at 2020 census, and it'll be a new district based on these goals that we see up here.
So going forward, we will be using 2020 census data. That map, that map 109C, that may not even look like it looks today at the end of this process. And I don't want to make any promises, but I could tell you we've already received a number of map suggestions from the community, which is outstanding. And as Ryder had mentioned, we'd love to see council adopt a map that was authored by a member of the community. Okay.
I don't know if this is the time to ask the question, but the part of Fort Ord that is Marina where the people were not allowed to vote, I'm told that they're still not allowed to vote except for in the presidential election. So how is that going to be fixed?
I don't know about what, I could tell you anybody that's in the city limits has counted in the census. I can't answer that part about the vote. Do you have a response, Matt, on that?
About whether or not you can vote if you live in former Fort Ord? Yeah, so if you're in the city limits incorporated today, you're part of the districts. If you're in the student housing population outside of the city limits, then you would not be voting in Marina. That's correct.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Matt, the deputy city manager. Okay, next slide, please. So a big part of this, and big part of the things that Ryder's going to facilitate us through is help us out. What is your neighborhood? Is there a question back there? What is your neighborhood? What are some of the geographic boundaries, the major roads, etc.? Next slide, please. And then what defines your community? And like I said, the communities of interest are defined as areas of shared social or economic interests. I give a couple of examples of a community of interest, like a homeowners association. One could say an apartment complex would be a community of interest. It may not, however, include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So we're really looking for, when we're working with Ryder here in a few minutes, tell us your story. What is your community of interest? And we've received information as we've gone through this process through the website, and we'll show you the website in a minute. But help us out. We're going to, hopefully we'll leave today with a nice list of information that you provide for us. Next slide, please. These are some of the examples that we've collected through, through the public hearings and through the online submissions. It gives you an idea. We don't mind repeats. We'll take repeats and we'll edit them for clarity and brevity. So how about some questions for Ryder and or me?
You're going to take over for a while? I can save you some steps. That's good. I need the steps.
So would access to like a downtown area maybe be considered a community of interest? And if so, would access or proximity to the coast be considered a community of interest?
You know, the easiest response to that is this particular community of interest does it have shared social or economic interests or impact interest, or is it impacted potentially by city or county policies? If you believe that's the case, then put it up there. Because you're the local experts. We're trying to get the data from you to help inform not just local map authors, but also national demographics as well. And this will also inform council when they're looking at the draft maps.
So I don't necessarily have information to give, but I'm concerned about, I represent the Tennis Association in Preston and Abrams Park, 546 people who rent. The tendency in all the maps I have seen is to combine them with a much higher economic group, Sea Haven or the Dunes, and that basically waters down our community. So it's important to me that we be combined in these districts, perhaps with other areas. We also take on the airport, which has like 17 people in the census. I don't know any 17 people that are living there, so I'm not sure who those people are. But we have these large areas of unpopulated areas around us, or places that are not even part of the city of Marina. So this is a problem I see that I'm hoping that we're going to find some way to address, because I don't feel it's appropriate for the people who've lived here so long to be watered down by an entirely new development, and that's what I'm afraid is going to happen here.
Thank you for sharing, and we want to make sure that we'll capture that when Ryder goes through that process. Thank you very much. That's an excellent example.
And I did see one map that had been submitted that did mitigate that included us with other parts of Central Marina and the airport. So that's,
and
right now I'm favoring that one because that's more mixed social, economic, and groups. So.
Yeah, so the other part of that is, thank you. And the other part of that is, I talked about the January and February public hearings. That's also the time to come and share that information with council, because you see council's not here. Sometimes that's by design, but it'd be great the council's going to have that in writing, but it's also good to hear, the triangulation of sorts. I'm going to go back here.
The slide that you had before, just before this one, with all the listing of the various.
Yes.
Is that on the website or I need to have some access to where some of these places of interest are. Off the top of my head, I know some, but if I can see what everybody else has got. Yeah. It'd be easier for me to kind of, oh yeah, that's right, this is an apartment here, or oh, that's right, this is over here, so that I can.
So I believe the request is the slide that showed the communities of interest and neighborhoods already shared isn't on the website. Yeah. And I think the easiest thing that we can do, if it's not, Matt, we're putting this PowerPoint on the website. Yes. Yeah. So it'll be on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. All right.
Okay. So we're going to jump into this communities of interest discussion. And our goal is we've already had a great example, Gold Star. I forgot my gold stars for this trip. My apologies. I'd be handing them out. I used to love gold stars in second grade. They were awesome. So, but gold star. So that's exactly the kind of feedback. In fact, I'm going to ask you to repeat it. And I ask for your patience tonight. Why my good friend Allie over here, Allie with Tripepi Smith, Allie Torres, she's going to type these things up on the screen. So we need to Alt-Tab back to, well, actually, sorry. Thank you, Allie. Could you pull that up real quick? You were in the right. You were actually ahead of me on where you wanted to be. So these questions right here are what I would love for you to consider tonight as we talk about who's in your community of interest, meaningful places in your community, common culture characteristics, something that's significant to the physical environment. These are the kind of questions to consider when we're talking about communities of interest tonight. So keep these in mind. And with that, I'll have Allie flip back to Word. And this is going to be our virtual whiteboard for tonight. And I'm going to have you talk, and I'll probably clarify some of your points. I may ask you to give us street names so we have real geographies to point to that give definition in neighborhood areas. So you referenced a neighborhood earlier. I'll come back and ask you to give some definition to streets. And we'll get on with it. And again, just we ask for your patience. Since we don't live in Marina, you're the experts on Marina, we want to make sure we capture it as the outsiders here as we take notes. So let's start back here as your Gold Star example. So you were naming two areas, which was Sea Haven.
Now, Preston and Abrams Park, these are, this is at the very edge of the city, and this is one Preston. That says Creston. Preston with a P, Preston, and Abrams Park. Those are both city-owned properties. They're rental properties. They have been populated since the fort closed, I think since about 1997 is when I moved in there. And the other developments that are higher end, it's a different socioeconomic class for the most part, are Sea Haven and the Dunes. And what I'm concerned about is that because, you know, the entire process that we've gone through of districting generally works in very large cities. Marina is not a very large city. And that's one of the problems that we have with this, because it sounds like we're suggesting sometimes that we have like a group here or a pocket there. We don't. We have renters down in Del Monte at the other end of town, concentrations. And then we have this big concentration out there. So you can't say we're going to create a renters district that serves those interests from which somebody could be elected. So my concern is that Preston and Abrams not be absorbed into a district with the newer housing, because I believe that they have a very different interest. It's an older group. It's not as many families. There are some exceptions. There's the university apartments there. But for the most part, it's a whole different social economic group, whereas Preston and Abrams is in part affordable housing, and it is also middle class and working class people. And I don't want to see it folded in with a different group that's going to outnumber. We have probably, I don't know, maybe population-wise, I'm just guessing at this point, maybe 1,500 people there. So we're not going to make up a district on our own. Right. I would like to see us combined with working class, middle class communities, and that means going down Reservation Road, perhaps, and over. You know, we're bordered by Reservation, Imjum, Abrams, and Preston Drives.
So when you're describing there's three streets that surround Preston and Abrams Park, is that correct?
Major streets,
right.
Yeah.
So can you say
it kind of winds around through Sea Haven.
Yeah. So for the line, what were the three street names?
Imjum.
Imjum.
Imjin. It's a Korean word.
Thank you.
Reservation Road, Preston Drive, and Abrams Drive.
Preston and Abrams. Okay. Great. Okay. And the point here is to keep these distinct as well. So we will note, let's put under Sea Haven, keep these distinct, separate from Preston and Abrams as the feedback. Okay. Good example of feedback and defining a couple neighborhoods specifically as communities of interest, and also an additional detail of not only defining communities of interest, but actually expressing a desire to keep that they are distinct communities of interest, different, and not necessarily wanting to see them put together into a district. Other communities of interest that exist in town that somebody would like to raise?
Can I just add to that?
Sure. Hang on one second.
Yeah, my opposition is not that I dislike the people in Sea Haven or Dunes. It's just that they have an entirely different frame of reference, and there's likely to be a larger population there than there is in Preston and Abrams, and so they will their interests may outweigh the interest of Preston and Abrams, and those interests are very different in my opinion, so.
Yep, okay, very good. All right, thank you. Hand up.
More of a clarifying question first. So the piece about no racial gerrymandering, is that to say that if there was a area of town that had a predominant race, then you wouldn't want to consider that as a community of interest, or you would?
So I'm going to let Jeff answer that question about whether or not there's a predominant area of town that has a particular ethnicity. Do you consider that a community of interest or not?
You know, if it's an area that has shared social or economic interests, yes. That's the defining piece on communities of interest. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Abrams.
A-B-R-A-M-S.
2A, line, yeah. AB, Abrams. And same with the park name, Abrams. Sorry. Hang on 1 second. Let's give Allie a chance to catch up. It's so much pressure. And then 2A, Allie, also needs to be corrected. Oh, undo. Command Z.
There we go.
So, yeah, and then 2A also has Abrams. Sorry, number 2A. I keep saying 2As, but I mean like 2A down here.
Oh.
So Abrams right there. All right. We're getting warmed up here.
Okay. What I'm looking at is the fact that they're building all these mansion-looking houses on Fort Ord, starting at $800,000. And even Preston Park, when I moved from Preston Park, it was $1,500 a month for the people living there, and there's no telling how much it is right now. So it looks like to me there's going to be a big mix-up with the residents and whoever's moving into those mansions they keep building all over Fort Ord. And especially looking at Schoonover Park too, which is a mixture of students and other people that are not students. And so it looks like to me there's going to, the vision is not going to be easy to fix.
Okay. And so, and all the activity you were just describing, that's all taking place on the Fort Ord property?
Yes, all
okay.
of it, every bit.
And so you described two areas there. So the first one was you were describing the mansions that are growing up on that area. So high-end housing.
Yes.
So that's one kind of noted neighborhood is in the Fort Ord property is the name of it. So it's the former Fort Ord, F-O-R-T, then next word Ord, O-R-D. And then you said there was a second neighborhood or area up there, which is
Schoonover Park. That is supposed to be student property for CSUMB, but they also have other people living there that are not students that's supposed to be working for Department of Defense or whatever else they're doing. They're also renting to those people as well. So it looks like to me it's going to be still a big mix-up, and I don't see how that's going to be dealt with.
okay. And how is there a name? So you said a name for that neighborhood area.
Schoonover Park.
Schoonover?
School.
That is not part of Marina's jurisdiction. That's still on.
It's on the outside of the jurisdiction.
But it's really not that far from Preston Park.
Right, it's directly
Yeah.
across the street, but it's
That's
not part
right.
of
But technically, it's not part of the city of Marina.
Well, and like I said, it's a big mix-up, and people don't understand what's going on, because a lot of those people cannot even vote for anybody but the president. They can't vote, they have to be able to vote somewhere. They're citizens, so.
So they probably get to vote, if it's probably unincorporated county, so I would imagine they get to vote for the county supervisor, but they don't get to vote for city school or for city council.
Well, they should be able to vote here.
So, well, we can follow up on that, but we're not going to solve the voting rights tonight for that particular area, but we can follow up on that. Other communities of interest? neighborhoods that you want to make sure stay distinct or stand out as distinct, or shared cultural interest or economic interests?
Let me just, if I can, kind of underscore what I was saying before. Marina, the city of Marina is not New York City or Chicago, so we don't have like a sort of town that is, one area is this culture or that ethnicity. So this is why this is difficult. It's not, our divisions are more economic based, I think, than anything. And so it's hard to come up with something that I think that might be being asked to do, that these communities of interest are not based on culture and ethnicity necessarily, but more along economic lines, which I think is what Levon was talking about too. So anyway.
So I agree with that point. I will just say that the town of Marina is not unique in being a small community that's been forced into doing districts, right? So we're seeing this all over California, and lots of similar cities are facing these challenges of how do you take a very small something and make it even smaller by dividing it up into, I mean, in some cases, we've seen cities go to 7 districts from 5, right? So you can imagine Marina with 7 districts, it would be very small districts. So, yes, sir.
I kind of want to make another comment. I know it doesn't define a community of interest, but it almost seems like the census blocks are defining because our town is so small, as Paula mentioned. I mean, these census blocks are defining our community of interest. And, from my perspective, it doesn't feel like we have as much leniency as maybe a bigger city would have to move those around. And that's disappointing and unfortunate, but I mean, that's what I feel our community interests are kind of based on these census blocks.
So one thing I want to clarify, and Jeff, if I could clarify with you, looking at this map, mind if I borrow this real quick? Looking at the map that's here, is this one of the NDC maps where we've typically taken and consolidated multiple blocks into bigger chunks?
Correct.
Okay.
Just for simplicity purposes.
Yeah. So this map that you look at, which says Marina Redistricting 2021, that looks like this, each of these blocks that you see right here is not a census. It's not a census block, which is the smallest form of data that the census has. Which gives us the most granularity possible. What this is several blocks that are put together, because if we did all the census blocks, the map would be so crammed and compact that in this format it would be unusable.
So the online mapping tools will allow you to break these up further.
I'll be able to show that, and we can drill down to the census. In fact, we have what we call the interactive review map. We can go all the way down to the home. Okay. But yeah, that's we call those population units, just for simplicity of. You have an idea of an area of a district, and you're just coloring it in and trying to get equal population.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has less fidelity.
I know I was late, so it's just a quick question. Is it possible for you to pull up that map and show us how that's done with respect to drilling down and
Yep.
Can you go through it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking the question. We're actually going to do some software demos tonight as part of the process here tonight. We're going to wrap up this community of interest discussion shortly, and we're going to get right into that. So you'll get a chance to see that. Let me go back here real quick.
So I would say, I don't even know how she takes this as a note. A high-density residential apartment area within the core downtown vitalization geographic boundary. So that's, that's this whole area. In my opinion, this is a community of interest.
Okay.
It's high-density apartments that are going to be dependent on transportation needs, walkability. That to me is a economic and lifestyle community of interest.
All right, so let me clarify something you described.
how
You
do I
described it as the
even
downtown
tell you?
core. Is the downtown core understood by everybody in Marina?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the downtown core, and it's the high-density areas within the downtown core.
Yes.
And that shares a shared community of interest and economic interest together.
Yeah, core, not for.
Downtown core, C-O-R-E.
Yeah. Yeah.
That worked. That was good. Excellent. You caught up, Ally? Yeah. All right. Did you have something, sir?
I did, but I may be worse than Grace in trying to make this into a comment. It's really more a question. Is there other information available to the community, all of us, about what the census actually indicates? We don't have any of those details other than numbers right now.
So I think that's a great question. The answer is yes, some of that additional data is available. And as Jeff takes you through some of the tour tonight, we can answer some of those questions and you'll see some of that data, I believe. Is that right, Jeff? Yeah. Okay. So you'll see some of that data. Yep.
Just so that I can figure out community of interest, what is this down here with such a high population number? Is that CSUMB student housing?
That is a great question to which I would defer to Jeff to answer that as best he could, since Jeff was participating in the original draft.
This area, Matt? Is
That
that
would- yeah, that looks like-
CSUMB
that looks
student
like
housing?
It's a new apartment.
Okay, all right.
It's all those darn students.
So that's
It is a community of interest. That's right. These youth run amok. Okay, why don't we go to the next phase and get into the software demo? Allie, make sure you save this document so we don't lose it.
We're going to take just a couple minute break while we're transitioning. If you're not interested in the mapping tools, you can leave. We will not be insulted. It's really a transition. Oh, sorry. We typically transition from what we just did to the mapping tools with a break, but we're kind of intimate here tonight too. So, and we won't spend a whole lot of time on the mapping tools because I think they're pretty intuitive. But I do want to show you the census data. So here's what we need in the 4 districts to be population balanced. As we're looking to draw maps, each ideally to be completely equal across the 4 districts, we'd want to have 5,606. So he's showing you a tool that we have, but that's what the number is in the 4 districts. I'm not quick on my math, but if you multiply 5606 times 4, that gives you the total census number as well. Can we get back to the PowerPoint? Thanks. All right. I could do it. Thanks. Well, I need to sit down for this part because if I can, there we go.
In the first, in the current one, I'm confused because this is the 2021, right, based on 2020.
Correct.
This number did not exist before, right?
Yeah, it's the same area they were just pointing to, and I think it's because that student housing was not there in
And
2010.
so this is very problematic to get to that, to get to that area down there. This is what I mean about Marina. It's such an odd bodkin. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. You can clip that to your collar.
Okay, so to close out the community of interest piece, you can go to the redistricting website via the city's website, and then there's a community of interest form that folks are welcome to sign, submit, provide some information as well. We have received a number of these, and then again, it helps inform individuals on the process and council as well. So here we are, we're going to draw a map, and So the question is it all compiled someplace where folks can see it? We do have that compiled, and is it on the district website, redistricting website? Yeah, okay. So great question, thank you.
So did we point out yet that our website is mapmarina.org? So if you go to that website, there's several tabs across the top, and one of them are look at the maps that have been submitted so far. You want to see maps of this?
It's right here, it's right on the screen right here. And if you were to, and this will be up later too, and this will also be on, well, it'll be on the website, but you know how to get there. But there is an email address too, and that if you send an email to that email address, it doesn't just sit in someone's email box. It's shared with about 4, 5, 6, 7 others, including me. I see the emails that come through there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the map drawing tool, participation tools. We will take anything, even a napkin, based on what your thoughts are. We'll try our best to represent your thoughts. I think it's been really awesome that the city has invested in, I guess it's a flyer that was mailed out to the residents that also had an opportunity for folks to draw maps. And I don't know, we must have received dozens of these already. And it's great. It's great participation. And those will all go, and they'll be processed by NDC, and they'll go before council at that January meeting. So I'm going to talk to you about some simple paper tools. You have one with you today, or you have it available. It's cousin, the paper map with the Excel tool. And then I'm going to give you 2 map drawing tools options that you can do online. It's one of those even a caveman can do it thing. But I'm also going to make a recommendation on which one to use. And I think you'll appreciate my recommendation. And if you happen to be a whiz on mapping software and GIS and all those crazy things, and you have your own software, we'll accept your map version through the software that you're using. Okay, so it's a variety of opportunities to do this. The simple review tool is essentially, it's not a map drawing tool. It's a tool that you can see all the maps that have been processed by NDC in preparation for council. And so those will all be available online. You can see kind of a box to the upper right-hand corner of that graphic, and it'll list all the draft maps, compliant or not. And what I mean compliant or not, usually the victim of non-compliance is they're not population balanced. That's right out the gate. I mean, it's probably 99% of the time, especially now with the new redistricting laws where contiguous districts are required, still the equal population is the violation where it's over 10%. And so, but we'll list it on there so folks can see what ideas that others might have had. So those won't be available until right close to that, the end of December. And then they'll stay on. They'll stay on. We showed you that website. That website has to stay on by law for 10 years. Trepepe Smith is managing that for the city, and that's by law that it stays on for 10 years, but it's more of a safety valve for Trepepe Smith to manage it because there might be a change in leadership at the city that'll say, let's get rid of this stuff from 6, 7 years ago, and all of a sudden they violate the law, not knowing. So it's kind of a nice little insurance piece for the city. So you have before you this simple map drawing tool. It is broken into population units. It's a bunch of census blocks. And again, it's just more of a 30,000 foot view of how you might see the city divided up into 4 districts. That's it. And oh, by the way, add up the numbers and see how close you are with equal population. That's really all it is. Because again, if we're looking at the laws, and we've had all this discussion, and I heard your frustration on communities of interest in the small city of Marina, but the number 1 rule is equal population. That's the number 1 rule. So the next tool is very similar. So here in this simple map drawing tool, we have population units with population figures inside those shapes. Same applies here with what we call the simple map drawing tool plus Excel supplement. Instead of those population figures inside, you have a single number that's not repeated. And that number, you just take that number and you drop it into the Excel file into what district you want that number to go into. And all the demographics are processed for you. You don't need to use your fingers or calculator. It'll tell you about the population, number in that district, voter turnout, the demographic breakdown by ethnicity, race. It'll go citizen voting age population, income, particular income levels, education levels, language spoken at home, etc. It's the same information that council will receive with every draft map. Oh, I got a question. I got to leave the chair here. Okay.
I thought in a council presentation, you or somebody said voter turnout couldn't even be considered with creating districts.
So she said, I thought in presentations that I did, and it was me, that voter turnout can't be considered. I didn't say that.
All right, I thought
Yeah,
I heard.
yeah. That's part of the table of data that are available to council. We provide this whole robust set of table.
Then
What,
let me
what we're
ask you
looking for
differently.
is citizen voting age population. That's what we're looking for.
So these population numbers are 18 and older?
No, those population numbers on the map that you have before you today for the sample, those are residents, regardless of voting age. Those are just residents. So the equal population must be by residents.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has really nothing to do with if they're eligible to vote, et cetera. Question?
Sorry. So this is these larger blocks or defined areas on this map that relate to the spreadsheet. But I thought that we were going to have a more refined breakdown because we might need that in
You
order
were
to balance
probably
this out.
like a gifted student in school, huh?
Well, I've sat on a redistricting
Yeah.
committee before.
So we're almost there.
Okay.
We're almost there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I don't mean to insult. I wasn't
No,
trying to
that's
insult.
okay.
I'm a retired educator. I get licensed to do that sometimes. Okay.
So just following up on what Grace said, so these are population, so it includes people that can't vote?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. It's humans that resided in the city of Marina the day the census was taken.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Clarifying on that.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your three columns, you have A, B, and the first column was the voter rights, second column was the state laws, and the third column was the things that you can use to kind of further refine it. The voting people would be, or the voting data would be in that third column, right? Not in the first two columns?
It could, but it's really going to be way down as consideration, way down the line as consideration. Again, the most important piece is equal population, and then we're looking at the strength of the protected class in each of the districts. Are we strengthening the protected class? Are we weakening the protected class? There's also something that we don't want to do. One's called packing. So basically, you're packing a district with a segment of the protected class, which therefore dilutes their strength in the other districts. Or cracking, which is basically cracking the protected class, so then it dilutes it all the way across. Okay? I got a question right here.
So can you define a community of interest such that it's independent of where current people who hold political office live? So in other words, this was actually a complaint about the last process, and whether it was fair or not. That was an argument that the maps that were drawn up were gerrymandered by a group of 5 council members.
Right. So you cannot use incumbents or political candidates to define a community of interest.
I know, but can you actually state that? And in fact, if we could go back to the community of interest thing, I think if we could state it clearly, these maps have to be made independently of where current incumbents live. Is that already built in, or?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I will go back to that after I go through the maps demonstration, but the answer is yes and no. Okay.
Where can we find the information regarding the protected classes? Like, is there demographics?
Yeah.
Like, how do we?
Where can we find the information on, which is citizen voting age population? We have a table. We'll want to make sure that we have that posted to the district website. Tomorrow morning, I'll email it to Matt to make sure. It's the 2020 census. I usually have it in my PowerPoint presentations, but it's not in this one for some reason. Okay.
And that table shows.
So hang on.
So what Audra's asking, that table will relate here, we'll be able to see the protected, is there another column here that shows this is a protected class, or is that already in there?
It'll show citizen voting age population.
So
That's not the same as the actual population.
that would be
correct.
different from a protected class then.
It-
The
it-
citizen voting age is not necessarily a protected class simultaneously.
So let me rephrase this, because I think we're really getting into the weeds, and we're starting to assume things. And that's not an insult. I'm just saying this table that accompanies every map has a robust, it's a robust table of data, okay? Including in that will be, now I want to stop before I continue on. Matt will post the 2020 census data on the website. I can't promise you when, but he will, okay? It's the 2020 census data. And it's going to show you, hang on a sec, please. It's going to show you the breakdown of a Latino, non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black, non-Hispanic Asian American Pacific Islander. Then it's going to show you the citizen voting age population of those same categories. And it's going to show you voter turnout of the last 3 elections. And it's going to show you a lot of other things. But you have to understand that that table is the 2020 census information. It's not how the city will look once the maps are drawn with redistricting. It's going to change. It's just raw data. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's go over here now.
Okay, still the question that I have is when we are doing this type of drawing of a map, and we haven't submitted it, but we're playing around with it, will it show us, is there any column there that will show us the protected classes and a total for the district that we have just...
That's correct, it will. It will.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, here we go.
I know one of our areas is former Fort Ord, right? That's one of our real sensitive areas here. So one of the strategies you might think about is you can deviate 10%. So if we know Fort Ord today has a population of X, and we know it's going to be 2 times X 5 years down the road, you could think about hedging the population there a little bit. So 9%, I guess, down would probably make it balance a little bit closer over time. So just another way of looking at it if you're concerned about former Fort Ord and the growth there.
Okay, thanks, Matt. All right, so again, this tool will calculate all the data that I was talking about. It'll create that table that I was talking about earlier, okay? Great questions. I see you're excited, so I better have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 maps by tomorrow morning, okay? All right, this next tool is called District R. This is the one I don't want you to use, and I'll tell you why. Because we're talking about data. District R is a great tool, great tool. It's created by the students and staff from Tufts University. It's not a business. This is what happened. They became so popular, they basically cannibalized themselves. They cannot keep up with the demand. And the demand for California was all those jurisdictions with December 15th dates, deadlines. So while Marina has it on its website to use, you can still use it, but it only has estimated data. It doesn't have the 2020 actual California adjusted data. We will take anything that has been submitted with District R and we will process it. Okay, so we're not throwing out anything that's already been done. If someone wants to continue to use District R, we are still going to process it. Just know that the caveat, and I'll show you where that is, it'll say, based on NDC's estimated data, and our data has been pretty close with respect to the jurisdictions throughout the state of California. Okay? Hey, hang on. We got to get you on the recording here.
I apologize. So you're suggesting that this is right now on the City of Marina's website that people are using this, but it is not using the actual census data for 2020. It's using other estimated data?
That's exactly what I said. And it's called estimated data that NDC, through our algorithms, essentially predicted what the census information was going to be. And we've been really close with all the jurisdictions, but we can't say it's official. So, Tufts University is not in any hurry to update all these other websites because they're barely staying alive. And if somebody resigns, it's not like they can go out and hire somebody to fill that spot. So that's why I'm not saying don't use it. You can. I'm just giving you some of the backstory. And I'm going to demo this next one, especially Dave's redistricting. I know it sounds funny, like do I get fries with that? But it's actually a pretty cool tool. And we'll go through that. Again, as we wind down here with respect to the PowerPoint, we have the schedule coming up. Again, everything is posted on the website. If you have questions, please email is probably the quicker way you're going to get a response. I can't guarantee the phone number. I don't mean I can't guarantee the phone number. I mean I can't guarantee how quickly you're going to get a response from the phone number. But you will get a response from the email address. I'm going to shift into the tools. All right. Now, there's a couple ways you can get to the tools. Well, I'll just show you the way to get to the tools because you'll have to go to the website. Here we have the tools. We just went over the paper map tool, number 1, that you probably have on your desk. And number 2 is the one that uses an Excel sheet. Now, we didn't print that out because it's an Excel sheet. And you need to drop the numbers into the Excel sheet for it to be to work. So there's English or Spanish. Underneath number 2, it says Public Participation Kit. Excel spreadsheet, you open that up, and then the Excel spreadsheet opens like Matt was showing us before we started this particular portion of the mapping tools. Number 3 is District R. I'm just going to open it up. Underneath it, you see a District R map tool training video. You're welcome to watch it. It's Doug Johnson from National Demographics Corporation. I think he's speaking about Sacramento County as the example. It's all the same. So you can see here, if you were to click on that website, there's a purple rectangle there. It says basically you draw in the districts or you can identify a community. If you're looking to draw the entire map, please click on the purple one. But I'm also showing you that these are maps that folks have already drawn, and they're in the gallery. These will be presented to council in January. So there are 9. Okay? And so I'll just open one up and I'll give you an idea of what it looks like. And so here is an example, and you can see right up here it says users projected 2020 population data with processing by National Demographics Corporation on blocks, census blocks. The numbers, excuse me, the colors represent the district number. Even if the district number doesn't correspond to what the current district numbers are, NDC will change that, okay? Because the way this works is it says, well, if it's the blue color, that's District 1. So, it's just going to tell you, it's going to say that's District 1, followed by District 2, and you might just be so excited by coloring in because blue's the first color you see. So the tool's going to say, well, that's District 1. But it may not correspond to the District 1 that's currently in operation now. So this particular one here, and you said, remember I said the ideal population based on the 2020 California adjusted was 5,606. And with Dave's and with District R and NDC's estimate, we are off by 23. Or whatever, 24. I can't remember my math, I'm sorry. Off just a little bit. Yeah, 13, we're off 13, right? Come on, Matt, I don't know. 13, sorry. So, and then it says max population deviation is 3.82. you can't use that. That's not the same formula that we use for the 10%. But you can tell this person here is pretty close to balanced. Okay. All right.
And we see this on the website when we dial into the city website?
Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry.
So the question was, well, we see this on the city's website. Is that what you're saying?
So when we go to the city's website, we are going to be able to access this and look at the maps that have already been submitted and see what their balancing is. Everything that you're showing us here on the PowerPoint, is that correct?
So everything I'm showing you right now, I accessed through the city's website. And this is on District R. This is the gallery for Marina using the tool District R. But these maps have not been processed by NDC yet. So when it comes time for NDC to process draft maps, we will take this particular map, we will process it through our system and present it to council with the big data table, et cetera, accompanied to it. Here's a question.
And can people submit more than one map? In other words, if I drew a map and then I talked to Brian McCarthy later and he changed my mind on something, and can I submit a second map, or can you?
You can submit as many maps as you want, and you can have the Brian and your name map. I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm probably going to drive my boss. I might lose my job after this trick I show you.
Just to clarify too, there are many more maps we've already received, but they're on paper, so those are not.
So I think I can drill down pretty good on this one. I want to show you something for someone like me who is going to review maps. I hope no one in this room drew this map. I would say to council, I don't know what this is right here. Okay, that to me is kind of a red flag, especially when you're looking at compactness. Why is this line right here? Well, in all likelihood, because it's a funny looking census block. That's probably the rationale for it. And the person doesn't know. I would have to assume. Because look here, you're looking at the Cabrillo Highway, and you've got the entire highway, Highway 1, and then it stops. And now the Green District takes over right here. That's stuff that can be cleaned up. Yes, we had a question? Hang on.
So you can tell I'm big on this census block thing. When you say it can be cleaned up, we could turn that green and make it the rest without having the rest of that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
So it's like we scripted this. So there's a way. So this is saved. See if I can back out of this. I think I opened 2022. That's the name that they gave it, 2022. So I can open this up, and I'm saying, gosh, I really like this. So I can take the eraser and go, yeah, but I don't like that right there. You see, and now I'm erasing. And I want to save it as my map. So you can save it as your map. So you get back to your question, the two of you get together, you can make. So I'm going to back out of this because I don't want to accidentally save it. So 2022 is still there. But I'll give you an example of drilling down. This has 4 tools. The finger that moves the map, the paintbrush, the eraser, make a mistake, and then you really want to drill down. So I want to get rid of this, this little finger that's going in here. I need to drill down more. And it's probably because it's a funky census tract, which, by the way, Marina has a lot of those. Okay, let's make my eraser a little bit smaller. See, there's the census tract. See how that changes? That's the whole census tract. So if I hit the eraser, watch what happens. That's the entire census tract. So the only thing that one can do is to come in, and let's see what happens if I make that green. And it moves the numbers up a little bit. It definitely changed, the deviation numbers as a whole. It lessened up my blue, and so I'd have to come in and find, maybe a little more blue. But if I liked what I did, If I liked what I did, then I would just save it. I'm not going to do it, but I'd save it. Oh, I just did it. It's not going to be saved, by the way. But I give it a name. It's going to assign it a different number. See, it's going to assign it 84614. So when you see maps coming before you, before council rather, that are from District R, they're going to have the letter D in front of them. And it's not going to say, hang on a sec, please. It's not going to say D 2022. It's going to say D 82059. Okay. So you'll know that's from District R. I have a question over here. Sorry, folks.
So I'm sitting here, I'm drawing these, and I'm kind of playing around with it, and I want to save it someplace else so that I don't want to create a final one until I've created a number. Is there a way to take what we have here and save it someplace else instead of on this website?
Yeah, right. She asked if you save it someplace else. You can put it into the works in progress right down there below. You can see it on the screen.
This is probably a Census 101 question, but just the example you just gave us with that funny little finger, that was the end of a census block. What actually defines the census blocks in the first place?
Yeah, census blocks are basically created. I have to think that I'm going to be nice. They're created, but based on population. That's why you'll see a lot of, especially in rural areas, where these huge census blocks. I think out by the airport, you have these huge census blocks and say, that's just so much geography out there, but that's the census block. You know, basically, it's there's a figure. It's almost like a city block, but it's especially in particular areas in California, rural areas, you can't use city blocks as the defining piece.
So are you, just a clarifying question with respect to that, are you explaining it's based on population density? So that finger is a larger population, or exactly just what do you mean?
The opposite. There's no population. You'll see a lot of these funky looking lines like the highways, you know, that go really long way, or railroad tracks, railroad frontage, you know. They're easy to miss when you're drawing maps, you know, really easy to miss. So let's get out of District R. Dave's, well, District R doesn't require a login. Dave's does. So let's go from there's a how-to guide. Matt, I think we have, or Allison, I think we have updated instructions on that. Okay. Dave's Redistricting is free. You need to log in, because if you don't log in and you look for Marina, you're not going to find it. It's mostly Congressional Assembly, Senate tools. So I've created the Marina template. So once you sign in and have an account, then it tells you the instructions. You search for Marina, and then it'll tell you what to do. I need to sign into my account here. Pardon me. Now, your screen will not look like this because I have to go in administratively. I'm just going to give you, in essence, the concept of it. Now I need to find Marina. Very similar to District R. Oh, by the way, sometimes the hamsters need to start really going faster with Dave's redistricting. Seriously, you're thinking it's like, did I not pay my internet bill? And you're getting a witness of it right now. Hey, hang on, please.
So we're at the city's website. We have selected that. Will it then at that point direct us to set up an account?
Again, I'm going to say, please read the instructions on how to use Dave's redistricting. It's a very easy step-by-step process. You do have to create an account and go from there. All right, this is, we do have internet here, folks. I promise you that Dave's does work. We have the hotspot. I don't know how long it's going to take for it to open up. Let me see if I can get another one. I had one already pulled up. This is one of the problems with Dave's. It's like you have dial-up internet, but it's awesome. Did we get better? We got at least California. Here we go. Awesome. So, a couple of things. I'm going to close these out so I'm not using bandwidth. Like I said with District R, you know, it actually, this one will tell you, but the purple is District 1, green's District 2, etc. So if you wanted to kind of match the current districts in the city, you know, use that as your guide. The other thing is here, these are all right now in census, voter precincts. That's how this map is laid out. Don't use it. You know, if I can make a remark, don't use precincts. It's not going to work for you. So you come up here and you click the block. Now notice nothing changed, right? Well, it's not going to change until you click into the precincts. You see a couple of funky census blocks. So I'm going to drill in so you can get an idea. That tells me there's only 3 census blocks in this precinct. There we go. So now you can see census blocks. And very similar to District R, you have the thing where you can show landmarks. You have the handle, you can move it around, the paintbrush, and the eraser. So let's take the paintbrush, and you just start, see how the total population of that census block is 262 people. And you just start coloring in the areas that you want to be in District 1, in this particular example. And these are all census blocks. And it might be laborious. Now look at that funky census block. Do you see that one? See what it did? I'll go back and I'll erase it. See, that sometimes you have to deal with that. Can't do anything about that. Yeah. Okay. So that's Dave's Redistricting, or DRA 2020. It's actually really fun to play with, especially if you've been, you know, I grew up in the city of Manteca in the Central Valley, and I drew 4 maps on Dave's, just horsing around. And then, you know, I deleted them. But, you know, because you know the city, draw them. See what you get. You never know. NDC will draft probably 2 or 3 maps. I can't remember what our contract says. But as Ryder had mentioned at the very beginning, we would absolutely love it if a residence map was selected by council. We would absolutely love it. So I'm going to... What's that?
You give private lessons so one of ours will win?
Yeah.
No, so serious question. I think I'm seeing the way the software works, and they're built on the census blocks. So if you're using that method, there's no way to avoid funny things if they're in the census blocks. So that's actually my question. Can you draw these maps independent of the census blocks where the actual counts reside? Is there any way to do that without relying on the census blocks themselves?
We have to use census blocks, sir. We have to use them.
You have to.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it. Well, then, in other words, you cannot avoid what looks like a gerrymandered map right now.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
Just quickly, that's because that's a strip of apartment buildings down there, and then it's just the empty airport beyond it.
Right.
So it's not, there's no gerrymandering in there. It's
Right.
just, that's marina.
But
That's
it-
our lovely marina.
Correct, but it looks like it. Right, right.
Sorry to push back, but I just want to be crystal clear, because what I heard earlier is that, yes, we can manage those funky census blocks, but maybe there's not the appetite, or it takes too much work, or whatever the case might be.
Okay.
I'm really trying to understand that.
Sure. If there's a lot of development in that census block, but this census block here I'm hearing it's basically empty, you know, or like I said, frontages, freeways, they're just funky looking. But if it's, give you an example. There's I want to make sure I get the city right. I think it's Poway. There is a census block that cul-de-sacs create havoc with census blocks. But in like Poway where they have the mesas, so you might, their census block will look good on paper, like this makes sense, but down below are residents and up above are houses on the mesa. Well, they're not connected, you know. So then we would go in and we would slice that census block basically in half because they're not connected.
So when we're drawing a map, is there a place to put in some notes to say, hey, I drew it this way, but I would really love it, NDC, if you would look at chopping the census block?
Yes, you bet. We'll entertain that. You bet. Now that I remember, there was kind of a joke about, you know, tutorials and things like that. I want to say that District R maps are anonymous. You see on these maps, we're asking for your name and your contact information, only to get back with you in case we have questions. It's not that we're going to name the map after you. Okay? So if you had hopes of that, that's not going to happen. It'll be map 101, 102, whatever, like that. But that's really the intention. Now, if you really press hard that you want the map named after you, or council is so excited that it wants named, that's up to the council. But any final questions before we close out tonight with my partner writer? We're doing, I think, the midnight show.
We're going to do a midnight show. I wouldn't encourage you to show to that one. But we are doing a 10 a.m. show.
10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Right here.
Same place.
Right? Very exciting. Preloading Dave's maps. It'll be awesome.
Yes. Where can we see the recording is the question that's being asked on the floor, and it's going to be on the website? It's going to be on the website. On the Marina's redistricting website. Map Marina. Okay. So again, thank you very much for coming. Feel free to grab some cookies, oranges, or are they tangelos or tangerines?
They're peels?
Peels. Good night, everyone.